Hi, and welcome to SpeekyGeeky. As always, I am Mr. Geek-E. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Chris Fawcett from RAD Plastic. Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
Hey, how are you doing? Good to see you again.
Great to see you too. So last time that we talked, I had seen pages of the book and they looked phenomenal, and you could tell how well crafted and thought out the pages that I saw were. Now just having it in my hands, and it's right behind me here too, which I can
yeah, I see it.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the first thing I thought of when I got this thing, this is a massive book.
That's probably the comment I get the most from people posting I see on social media or wherever, or getting some emails. The number one comment is, wow, this is way bigger than I thought it was going to be. So I guess that's a good thing. People aren't saying, oh, it's too big. They're saying that in a good way. They like that it's quite a substantial book there.
Well, I mean, and it's not just that it's big, it's that like each page is really well thought out too. And it's sectioned out by era, it's sectioned out by content, it's sectioned out by color coding here too. I mean, you can see on the pages, like it's very, it's
that was my idea to color code that thing. My designer Chance, he is responsible for almost everything you just commented on the page layout and making sure. But I will take credit that it was my idea to have the little color coding so you could just jump to a year.
That was entirely you.
That one little thing in the design. The rest of the design is him, other than the fact that I had a general concept in mind of, I wanted it to be colorful, vibrant, stand out, because that's what the Turtles line is about. It's like color blast in your face. So I wanted the book to reflect that aesthetic from the Turtles. So I think Chance did a good job. That was basically the instruction I gave him. I'm like, okay, we need to start figuring out the design of this thing. What do the pages look like? How are we going to lay them out? And basically I gave him that instruction. I was like, I want it to be colorful. I want it to pop. And so from there, I think he pretty much nailed it.
Oh yeah. It's a really vibrant book. And it was really hard to put it down to. I started reading this thing and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna, I'm gonna do it section by section. I'm like, I was gonna pace myself, and then it just couldn't. I couldn't put it down, and it was like hours later, I had read the whole thing, and
well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
so part of me was a little worried. It's like, is this too deep? Is it too technical? Is it too insider, and will people not really latch onto that? Because let's face it, do people really care if I'm talking about molds and things like that? And I was like, well, I don't know if they will or not, but if they don't like that, they can just skip past that section and go into the parts that are 90% pictures. But it's good to hear that like it was interesting from someone outside of the toy industry. I wasn't sure how that would come across.
Yeah, I'm interested by the whole process, right? And the whole, to me, this is so much love and so much thought that went behind all these things, where it's really neat to be able to see that whole process and to see just how intricate it was. Because, it's one thing to have a figure in your hand and appreciate it for the aesthetics and the beauty that you have. It's another to be able to see all the other pieces that went into making this thing that's now in your hands, and just the really creative minds that went into this and the different shape it took from beginning to end. And you illustrated this very well, that from the beginning concept sketches to the molds to the final stage, it takes a drastic turn a lot of times in terms of what the initial concept was.
Yeah,
and,
I could have probably gone into the weeds about twice as much as I did, but I didn't want to completely bore people with the technical side of the things. But yeah, there's all kinds of things that happen, from the original sculpts that I didn't talk about. And maybe this won't make any sense, but there are things about parting lines and how molds open and things getting stuck in the mold and things like that. Sometimes you have to go, the engineers would have to change the thing the sculptor did because there was something that they didn't quite consider, and now they've got it in a steel mold and the thing's not working right. It's the mold's crashing, it's not filling. A good example of that, I think I talked about it a little bit, was the mohawk on Punker Don. Yeah. If you look at the original sculpt, it's really super thin, and I'm sure the sculptor sculpted it that way. I've not seen any evidence that thicker, wider mohawk was done anywhere except in the final toy. So what I suspect happened was, they took that thing, probably made it super thin like that, and then they had trouble with the plastic filling up into that cavity because it was so thin, and you're trying to push it up in there, and you get air bubbles, and the air bubbles are pushing back and not letting the plastic flow all the way up to the tip. of the mohawk, and so they just widened it. So that's a good example of like some really super in-depth things that I don't really touch on, but there's all kinds of stuff like that I'm sure that happened, a lot of which I don't even know, because unless you see some evidence of it, like that mohawk, you might not even know what happened, and they work on it and fix it. But there's a lot that goes on there. It's not just the artists of the sculpting and things like that, but there's certainly an artistry and the engineering side as well of these toys that I didn't get into that deeply. So
and the morphing ones too, the ones where it was like the images compared to what the functionality of it, the animation stuff, where it was like where they would change into the various vehicles, and
those didn't translate very well.
No. They were still fun in their own way, but like when you see what they originally were supposed to look like, I would honestly, it's like I would love to see some of those in their original concepts too.
Well,
like
there were some, because I've seen the the original sculpt for the April mutations looks very different than what the final toy does, and it's actually quite nice looking. But the final toy got all this bulked up, and it was kind of ridiculous at that point.
Yeah, I'm saying like the toys of the original concepts, how they were originally supposed to look, almost kind of like what the Transformers Red does, if you're familiar with that line, where it's like you have the look of transformed phase or pre-transformed phase.
Yeah,
that's just nerdy me wanting everything. But it was really fun to see as well the back where it was you with all the pictures.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite sections. Yeah, the behind the scenes, I think, is what I labeled it in the book. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I mean, that means more to me and my crew than probably anybody, but it's just a nice sort of memento for me to look back there and have all these memories of all the stuff we did together.
It meant a lot to me too when I was looking at it. I mean, and that is also because I appreciate all the research and work that went into this, where it's like that's always fun for me, to kind of see that, because again, it's that extra level of appreciation. But also looking at your smile in those pictures, it was almost like your smile took up the whole page because it was so wide. And it was like, that was a blast, because I can only imagine, as you're a longtime fan too, and to have those interactions, getting to see things that most folks had never seen before, about these lines.
Yeah, and it's kind of twofold. I mean, probably some of the most rewarding stuff certainly was sitting and talking with the people, the designers, hearing their stories, hearing the funny things that happened on the job, or something they struggled with in a design or whatever. So, and honestly, like I have some of those people now that I consider some of my best friends. There's a couple of them that I call and talk to regularly still to this day, even 3 years after I first met them. Or if I'm out in LA or wherever, I'll say, hey, you want to grab dinner somewhere, and just see them again. And there are others that I didn't quite make that close of a connection with. It just depends on how much interaction I had. And some of the guys I talked to a lot because they worked on it a lot and had a lot of stories, and other ones were just like, yeah, I did this one thing, and I get that story and kind of move on. And then obviously the second thing was just the treasure hunting moment of, okay, let's go look through the boxes, right? And they're in my garage, or they're in my attic, or wherever they are, and to pull those down and hand them down to the other guys and my wife on the crew, and open things up and discover things. And that was obviously great, because you never know what you're going to find when you open that box. And it could be Star Trek, right? Or Earthworm Jim, or then you find some Turtles things. And then even there, it could be, here's some production carded figures. Okay, not a big deal to find. But then, you pull out a hard copy of Rocksteady, and you're like, wow, you never know what you're going to find in there. So that obviously has a fun element to it that I really have not experienced in any other place in my life. That sort of element of like anticipation and surprise and heart pounding and excitement when you find something is just unmatchable.
To me, I have that kind of feeling too. I imagine plenty of people have that, where it's the idea of kind of digging into, in a normal situation, digging into the unknown there is like such a fun thing. But here you have like buckets of history and warehouses of history, that element of surprise and that element of like, holy moly, I never knew this existed.
Or something that you knew probably existed, but you hadn't seen an example of it yet. Like a series 1 hard copy, for example, the first 2 we found were like, oh my gosh, here they are. Like, like I knew they'd made them, right? Because that's how the process worked. But you never know if the thing still exists in the world, or if every single example is in a landfill somewhere, right? Like that's never to be found. So to find some things is really amazing. And of course, the unproduced stuff is always incredible, to open a box and pull out whatever. I remember I filmed the one time, the only one I filmed is when we found the Team Ninja painted hard copies. And I was just fortunate, like I don't know what's in this box, but I'm going to film this one. And we opened that box up and we're like, oh my God, the Team Ninja hard copies are here. So, you know, I actually have that on video. It's pretty cool.
Oh man, I'd love to see that. I mean, because it's just got to be so genuine, that reaction, you know, towards.
I should post some of those old videos up on my YouTube page. I have not done that. I posted some of them on Facebook here and there. I'll try and do that sometime in the next few weeks. Maybe I'll even post that Team Ninja one today.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'd love to see that. The book is so thorough, but there's like so much more that you wanted to include that just you didn't have the space for it. You were worried that it was going to be just so massive.
Yeah.
Of the stuff that wasn't included, do you have favorites that you were really surprised by that they didn't make it out as toys? Like Spellcaster Splinter's in the book and it's phenomenal. I know that's one of your favorites, but of the stuff that concept wise, and I guess we could talk about vehicles, we could talk about play sets, we could talk about the figures separately because they're all, you know, but is there anything that really stuck out to you that you were like, how did this not get to the made stage?
Well, yes and no. It's really probably the most of the stuff that didn't make it into the book were either, there's kind of two categories of stuff that I cut, and that was alternate versions of things that were in there. So like, for example, the Apollo line only has like a page or two, and I have other pictures of Apollo things that I could have put in there, but they're like, all the astronauts kind of look the same. So I thought it would just be a little repetitive to throw every single one I had into the book. So that's an example of things that get cut. So in that case, it's not really something that I took out of the book that was something that didn't get made. It was just like things that felt a little bit repetitive. I sort of narrowed down the scope on. And then the other big section of stuff that didn't make it was just the concept sketches, 2D. And I made a conscious decision early on because I found a lot of that. I really wanted to focus on the stuff that made it to 3D. Produced or unproduced didn't matter so much. And also the stuff that was like, for concept sketches, I tried to stick to, if it wasn't produced, it was part of a line that was produced. So like Mutation Splinter was never made, for example. It never even got past the sketch. And there was another, like a warrior for the Forgotten Sewers line that was a generic turtle warrior that's only in sketch. The Black Knight's Shredder was only in sketch form. So if I had sketches of something that went with a line that was made, I tried to put those in. But if it was a sketch that was just complete random, not related to anything else, I mostly left those out. And so I have a lot of those sketches. There's a few at the beginning, like in the first chapter, like the bear and the crow that I use as examples of design sketches. But after that, once you get into the yearly section of the book, you'll notice there isn't really any unproduced sketches in there that isn't related to one of the lines from that year. So from that point of view, though, there was a lot of stuff that I think was really great in those sketches, some great concepts, some great ideas for, oh, this animal would make for a cool figure. I wouldn't say I'm really surprised that none of them got made, because I'm more surprised at the ones, the opposite. I'm more surprised as like, why did they pick, like, for example, King Lionheart when they had Blackbeard Parrot? In my brain, just is like, that is so perfect. Or not, it wasn't a parrot, I'm sorry, it was a toucan. So like, okay, pirate, really cool, right? You could almost make a whole line. Like, how did they not ever have a pirate line of turtles with all the stuff they did? How is there not a pirate line, you know?
Right.
But the toucan's the only one I saw in the sort of the pirate space. But I'm like, that's way cooler, even as a one-off concept, than like a lion as a king. Okay, that's kind of lame. Or, you know, the Merdude character. So it's more surprising not what they didn't make, because a lot of those concepts are really great. There's a few I'm like, yeah, this one's kind of stupid. You're always gonna get those. But like 80%, 90% of them are really great concepts. So I'm more surprised not that they didn't make those, because you have to pick and choose. They couldn't make everything they had a sketch on. So you know they're going to pick and choose, and they can only make whatever 20% of the things they concepted. But like, why did they pick these to go forward and not some of these other ones, which are way cooler? So I think that'd be more my surprise. It's like, why did some of the lame ones make it through when there's 80% of the unreleased stuff in sketch form is awesome? You know, why did they pick a few of these lamos? So,
well, I mean, and you bring like King Lionheart as an example. Even the concept figure that they proposed, the Thorn, right, was really cool. You know,
it was better than the final. Yeah,
it was better than the final, and even some of those other color schemes were really cool too with King Lionheart, right? And so, but someone like Thorn, to me, it felt like that could have, like you were saying, fit seamlessly in a lot of different places, because they would have waves that would focus on specific things, right? They'd have it tailored towards themes. The water shooting stuff is an example. They'd either the different functionalities and the different kind of play features. Like in the Shogun line, they had, you know, Shogun Shoei. They were able to bring that in. To me, like, you know, Warriors of the Forgotten Sewer, that would have been potentially a good place to bring in Thorn, right? That seems like a
as a king,
yeah, and yeah, or King Lionheart too, but it's just that it was more warrior like, right? And I guess like with Super 7 and with Playmates kind of bringing that back a little bit. Like, I mean, we saw that with the Super 7 Ace Duck as an example, with Errol McCarthy's head that they managed to bring into the line, right? The concept head. Is there any of these that you could see, like, I guess top couple that you could see that you would really hope, they're like, okay, this has a second shot now, maybe we could actually look at as a figure?
You know, I kind of do hope that one of the companies, I mean, obviously I'd love to see Playmates take some of these concepts and make a toy that fits in with the old line. But even if it's Neca or Super 7 doing them, it would still be interesting to take some of these old concepts. And I think both those places have my book. So, and I've talked to a few of the guys there. So, but they don't have all these concept sketches I have. I haven't turned those over really to anybody. But yeah, there's a few. I mean, the Toucan one is the one that always pops into my mind. I just think that's the sketch is great. Toucan as a pirate. I do like the Berinsky one that's in the book. There's one called Machete Yeti. I think that one's in the book as well. I picked a couple of my favorites and the ones that are in the book. So that's why like those two popped to mind. Oh, these two I really like. So that's why they're in there. There was also like a Australian line that included a kangaroo and was a koala bear. Almost looks like the adventurer turtle. I forget which one looks like Indiana Jones, but it's like that kind of aesthetic, but with a koala bear rather than a turtle. And there's a turtle, a kangaroo, and I can't remember what the other. There was a third figure in that sort of. They did a concept sketch of. Oh, it was like the one was like Walkabout almost, which is also a kangaroo,
like a dingo, I guess. Or
that?
Not a dingo, I guess. But
no, it wasn't a dingo. I can't remember what the third one was, but it was like they did a whole sketch of a line of like three figures that would have all come sort of in a grouping. Yeah, there's a bunch of random one-offs. There was one that was a snail. I'm trying to remember some of the others.
Was the snail one different than there? I know there was one for like the Toxic Crusaders line too.
Yeah, it's different than that. Yeah, it's not Clutch. Yeah, it's different than that one. The concept. I mean, they may have taken that snail one from Ninja Turtles and moved it over into changed it some, but it's very different.
I remember hearing like a while ago about a snail that had like a removable shell that could be used as like almost like a skateboard kind of thing, like that Mondo had.
I don't know. Maybe I'd have to look at maybe there's some notes on that. I'm not remembering that in my head right now, but maybe that's the one I'm thinking. There was like a bunch of a line of like time traveling turtles that were pretty cool. So there was some there. I remember one that was in like a gladiator outfit was one of the one from the time traveling series that they were looking at. There was a bunch of animals that I just can't remember off the top of my head now. It's been a while since I looked through those folders, but those are some of the ones I recall, which would tend to say they were either some of the best ones or some of the worst ones. The snail one was pretty horrible. It was bad. There was one that almost looked like a Medusa type character. It sort of had a merdude kind of feel, but like as a female, I didn't really care for that one either.
There was a Medusa in the Fred Wolf line. I wonder if it was meant to coordinate.
Yeah, I don't know.
With that.
I'm hoping someday to the Varner's sketchbook is coming out, which is going to be great because a lot of those ones in there I've seen, but from what he's posted, a lot of them I haven't seen yet. So I'm really excited to see all their sketches from the Turtles line. But I might do like a book like that with the sketches I have. Obviously, I'd pull out the ones that Varner already published in their book because why be redundant? But I'd just have to see of how many I had and if it was worth doing. But maybe a paperback book of 100 pages or something with all these concepts could be cool to put out one day. So we'll see. It's off in the future yet. I'm not even thinking about it at this point. I'm still, riding the wave of the first book. So
well, and congratulations too, by the way, on the second printing here. It was well met and very well deserved. One of my favorite books right now. I mean, this is this is one that I recommend to anyone and everyone. So I also am excited for the Varner. When I saw that was coming out, I was like, yes, please. Yeah. But it reminded me also of this earlier conversation that you and I had where you were thinking about doing that, and that would excite me very much.
Yeah. I'd like to. I would really like to find some of the original artists who'd be willing to color them. I'd like to get them colored because most of them are black and white. I think it'd just be a much better book if they were all colored. Even if it's, okay, this wasn't the coloring that was done back in the 90s. It's, they took an old sketch and they added their own color to it. I think that would be pretty cool if I can get some of them that want to do that.
You had the section in there with the larger mutants, the ones that you could ride. We know, Needle Nose, we know Killer Bee, and there was a couple others in there too that you showed. From the stuff that you were seeing, was that like the tip of the iceberg? Were they planning on expanding that out much further, or was it kind of, it was still like in the exploratory stage of, you know, seeing how that went?
So I think they released the first year line with two, and they started working on releases for the second year for the ant and the spider. The ant was actually sculpted. There are hard copies out there of that. I've seen nothing on the spider except for a sculpting of the little buddy that would come with it. That's, you know, this big. My guess is that that line didn't sell well, and so they killed the second year of those before they made it very far, and that was the end of that. I've not seen any other sketches or anything to say that there were anything other than those four, the two we got and the two we didn't get.
Those are fun. That spider, especially where it was with the it was like the graveyard. It was almost like it was a Frankenstein spider, which was really neat. What I thought was pretty fun too was looking at some of the early sketches of Muckman and seeing that evolution to what it became, the final version.
That was another good example of one where I didn't put in every sketch I had because they were some of them were fairly close and I couldn't fit them all. So I picked the ones I thought were the coolest and sort of the furthest apart. So there's more of those I have as well, of those evolution Muckman.
I mean, then one of the early ones almost looked like an oversized Joe Eyeball, where it's, to me, was like, I was curious where that fit into the whole scheme of things, where if that was one that, if Joe Eyeball became the sidekick, but originally was meant to be the,
yeah,
you know,
it could be. I'm not sure. I haven't really seen any like sketches or anything from Joe Eyeballs sort of specifically that sort of look like the final incarnation of that. So I'm not sure. I don't really have much info on that, but what you're saying is very likely. I mean, these things, you know, they always get turned around and recycled, and, oh, we decided we want to make these little buddies. What do we do? Oh, this sketch is kind of cool. Why don't we just shrink him down and make him, and like that kind of thing happens all the time. It's just, you know, it's a shortcut to getting the work done. And if something looks good and is right for the toy, like, why go explore 6 different new concepts and pay the artist to do that work when you have something that seems workable right up front? You can maybe just jump right into sculpting with some notes on it, say, you know, hey, here's this guy, we want to make these couple changes, sculpt him at this scale, go. And now, you know, you jump right into the sculpting and skip that time and effort of the design phase if you can. So that happens a lot.
the plush. I want to go into that a little bit.
Okay.
That's one that seems like a huge loss. Firstly, that we never got that, right? Like those
the second line, man, they were just so great. I can't believe it. As far as I know, other than the Splinter, none of them exist. I haven't seen. The one guy I talked to who thought maybe he had them didn't have them, and I've talked to the lady that made all the prototypes, and she didn't have any of them. Yeah, I don't know where those are. I just hope those turn up someday. I hope they're not in a landfill.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the thing is too, is that there's a huge plush collectors, especially now. You know, back then too, there was plenty of plush lines that were out, and honestly, there's some of the early stuff like the Duo, where it's like you could turn it into the shell. That really felt like it was like modeled after Popples. You know, it's like kind of riding the wave of Popples, which is like, I would have gotten all of those, no question. But like I'm just thinking like how that could have expanded to, like where you could have had Shredder that you fold up to become the Technodrome, or Krang where you could fold and then he's now in his, you know, it's like the android. I mean that's maybe functionality.
There's all kinds of cool ideas. Yeah, I believe that Mutations one never went anywhere. It's not even shown in the catalog or anything, unlike the line of, you know, the bad guys and the alternate costume turtles that were in Toy Fair. So that line got, at least they wanted to go forward with it, but probably did not get enough interest from the buyers at Toy Fair to move it forward. But yeah, the Mutations one, I think was, I suspect that was a one-off idea from some designer, or maybe the lady that had made the prototypes for them, that like, oh, this would be a cool idea, just let me pitch it. And then they pitched it and basically said, no, we're not going to do that. We want to do these others. And so probably never got farther than a pitch.
I know you're a big vehicle guy. Of the stuff that you were seeing, and I know there was the one we talked about last time where it was the car that would have the soda can, the soda racer. Were there other vehicle concepts that you saw and were like, this is so cool, this is like such a cool idea, it is such a shame that it never got out?
Yeah, I didn't see too many vehicle concepts at all. The Pop Can Racer is one. The Surfer Windsail toy that came out as a Toxic Crusader toy is another one that one really surprises me, because they had all the tooling done. All they had to do was make new labels and slap turtley stuff on it with stickers, and you were done. Maybe molded in a different color. So that one kind of shocked me that never came out. But as far as other vehicles, like I can't recall any like concept sketches for anything I've seen that wasn't released. All the ones that I've seen are basically the ones that ended up in the Toy Fair catalog that almost got released. Were that close. But well, I take that back. There were some really, really early ones, but like from probably 89 or 90, there were some general sketches. There was a spaceship, I recall. I got a couple concept sketches of that. Most of those were like variations on stuff that we ended up getting, even though they weren't exactly what we got. I honestly didn't find many concepts for vehicles that weren't made. The only thing that comes off the top of my head, other than the ones in the book, is that spaceship one, a rocket ship type thing.
Oh, that's fun. I always wanted the neutrinos car. I'm all about the spacefaring stuff, where that would have been.
Yeah, these were pre-neutrinos, so it was more of a generic spaceship than something related to neutrinos. I'll have to look through those. Like I think there were a couple more that didn't get made, but I've only found like one guy that was doing sort of vehicle concept stuff. He had some sketches. He did the concepts for the Mutant module, which ended up being made. So some of those sketches are in the book, but that same gentleman did some other early sketches of things that didn't quite go anywhere.
Was that the same with like the play sets too? Were there, and you showed some massive play sets in the book that didn't make it out, which would have been pretty cool. Also would have taken up entire rooms from some of these.
The massive play set that got prototyped was for movie 2. And then there was concept sketches for a medieval castle play set for movie 3 that never got made as well. I've never seen evidence that one went anywhere past the sketches, but it could have. Somebody might have made that up, and we never don't have any photos of it or anything, and it's long gone by now. But so yeah, but other than those two, I can't think of any real play sets. Well, early in the book, those Errol McCarthy ones that kind of morphed into these smaller Turtle Lair play set. But that original one with the face on it and all that stuff, that was an early play set concept. Oh, that reminds me, there were some vehicle concepts early on, and they're all in the book.
Anything new in your collection that you are excited about in terms of what you have gotten as exciting adds to your hard copies or your prototypes or your
probably some of the most interesting stuff I've picked up that isn't in the book is we found a bunch of the original design art for the labels for a lot of the vehicles and some of the figures too, like the flags and the skateboards and stuff like that. So the interesting thing about it, and some stuff we've learned from the person who had this one design firm, especially in the first 4 or 5 years, that did most of the label design, the sticker labels. And what they would do is they would draw these up in marker, oftentimes marker, pencil, ink. Oftentimes they were 2-up size, so twice the scale, sometimes even more than that if it was a particularly small sticker. So this is similar to what the packaging was. In the packaging side of things, that original artwork was shipped, most of it was shipped over to Hong Kong, where Playmates headquarters was, to make the packaging, and that artwork never came back. And so much of it is probably gone, probably thrown away. There's a chance that somebody over there kept it, or Playmates has it in an archive. It's possible. But unlike that, the sticker art, instead of doing that, what they did is they would just made colored photocopies of the original art, and they would send these copies over, and they would actually scale them appropriately on color copy or something, cut them out and paste them onto prototype toys. Could have been first shots, could have been hard copies, could have been some kind of mock-up. And they would send these color copies and these toys with the stickers on them over there for them to use to make their production. So what happened a lot is sometimes this art was redone a little bit. Oftentimes you see a lot of color differences, because keep in mind, like back in the 90s, color copying wasn't an super accurate, high quality thing at the time. So some of the color differences might just literally be from the color copy process. You can definitely see some places where the art was changed. Some of them are identical, some of them were changed a little bit, some of them look like they were completely redrawn. You can tell it's like, yeah, it's like some artist took this thing and just redid it. And that may have been part of the process where, they were getting these labels over here, but for whatever reason, the material they were giving didn't work well for their process of making stickers. So they had an artist in Hong Kong literally just redraw them using the original as a reference. So it's hard to label them what they exactly are. Is it the original label art? Is it original label design concepts? It's kind of both. It's kind of a hybrid. It's kind of like, well, some of them might be original, some of them might be just design concepts, but regardless, it's all we really have as far as original art goes for, you know, vehicle stickers and things like the flags, some of the flags that the characters had, and some of the stickers that went on, you know, like the sticker that's on the Super Surfer on his chest, you know, Mondo Gecko's skateboard, for example. But yeah, it was really cool. And I wish some of it could have gotten the book, but this was just like mid last year we found this. So it was like well after my ability to add anything, you know, we were already printing. You know, that's some cool stuff that, you know, maybe that can go as a subsection of the, you know, book full of sketches, because it's also 2D artwork. So it kind of fits in thematically, but there was some unproduced stuff in there. There was artwork for the sewer subway car, which is in the book. There's artwork for the Pop Can Racer and artwork for that Toxic Crusader Surfer, the Ninja Turtles version of that. There's artwork for that. And then a bunch of the things, you know, Mutant module labels, Scout Technodrome labels, the Rocker Van labels, the Rocker Turtles, actually, all their instrument labels, the original art for all those were there, Mondo Gecko. Yeah, so that was cool to find all that stuff. And it was a massive amount of, I mean, there's hundreds of pages of original artwork, and it's almost all ink and magic markers. So it's really cool to see. You can turn it over and it's all bleed through on the back, which is like, oh, you can tell this is original art. Because like, just look at the back. Yeah, that's original. So that was some cool stuff to find. Of that stuff, you know, you asked me my personal collection of that stuff. I kept the Pop Can Racer stuff. I kept the military van, the military vehicle one, because that one was cool because it has all the turtles in the windows. So the art's really interesting. I kept the Mondo Gecko skateboard sketch, which is like sort of, yeah, that was one of the top tier pieces in there. So yeah, I still have a lot of that stuff that is looking for a home still, just trying to find collectors who love the certain vehicles that might be interested. Fortunately, I can't keep everything. Wish I could. But, so that same trip out to LA, we discovered a second painted Wizard Splinter hard copy. So there are now 2 known examples of the Wizard Splinter painted. So one has yellow eyes and one has white eyes.
Which one did you personally like better?
I kept the original one I had. The original one I had is glossy too. It looks like there's a thing called clear coat that you can put on that sort of gives it a glossy sheen over top of the paint. And it looked like that one was clear coated, and the second one was more of a matte finish and had the white eyes. I like the glossier one better because it looks a little bit more like what a final toy would look like than the matte one does. But yeah, it's cool that another one of those turned up, because it tells me that maybe there's another Mike Knight out there, because there were 2 sewer cats painted. There were 2 Splinter Wizards painted. So who knows if there's another Mike painted out there somewhere. And
what you showed too is that there was one that had the T on it as well. So it's very
that's the rough clay. So not that one likely would never have been painted, because they would have taken it to the final sculpt before they did the painting on it.
Have you found, since the book has come out, that others have come to you and said, oh, I happen to have this, you know, to like kind of illuminate, you know, things we're missing as an example? It could be that no one knew that this was there.
There's a couple collectors that have put some stuff out there, not necessarily directly to me, but sort of just generally to the community, have posted some things and shown some stuff that they've had for years. So I can't say that anybody that worked on the line, like an employee, has done that yet. I've not sort of been randomly contacted by an employee out of the blue. So, but yeah, some collectors have, and there's just things like, oh man, I wish I would have had that for the book. I wish I would have had that for the book. I would have loved to put these in, but you know, at the time, a couple guys were just a little secretive, and they've started opening up a little bit. And one guy he knew he had a bunch of stuff, but it was all packed in boxes. You know, he's had it for a decade and just didn't have time to dig it out until more recently. So yeah, there's been some cool things I've seen, and you know, we found some more stuff as well in the last year from some of the people that I talked to before that worked at Playmates or contractors that you know, found some more stuff, or went over and helped them dig through some things and found some more things. So there's only a couple pages that are really different from the first printing to the second printing, and one of them is like the last page of the anaglyph section, where previously I had Radio Boy, which I later found out was a Toxic Crusader piece, not a Ninja Turtles piece. So I took that page out, and in its place I put a page with the sculpt for Pizza Face. That one was new. We found that sculpt just mid last year, so that was a really new find. I'm like, this would be perfect to replace this page that was like incorrect, right? It was bad information. And that happens sometimes. You find these things, like, oh, the box is labeled this and everybody thinks it's that. And that one came from Varner. They found a sketch in their sketch archive that showed that Radio Boy and was clearly labeled Toxic Crusaders. So I'm like, okay, well, that wasn't Ninja Turtles. You know, same thing happened with the Bison figure that I thought was a shredder, because the box the sculpt was in was labeled TMNT. And then they found a sketch later on that was like, oh no, that was Toxic Crusaders figure. That that was not Ninja Turtles. So, you know, things happen, you learn new info, and I'm sure there's more mistakes in the book probably that we'll have to find some new info on at some point in time. Hopefully not many though.
Well, but that pizza face was really cool. That's such a distinctly different head than we had seen and that came in the final version. It's funny to me too, because it's like how far along in the process it went before they realized that this wasn't going to show up. I think you mentioned that, where it was a surprise to even people working, you know, to a lot of the folks.
Yeah, the sculptors didn't even know that they had changed it until the toy hit the shelves. And one of them told me, yeah, I bought one, I tried to pull the hat off and it wouldn't come off. I was like, what the heck? That was changed fairly late in the process. But I mean, it was also something that was fairly easy to do by Playmates themselves without the sculptor being involved. It's like literally just like take the head, put the hat on, glue it together, and use that to make the mold rather than the two pieces of the mold.
So if you unhered the glue, would that extra piece be there, or is that?
No, I don't think it's glued. I think it's all one part, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it's all one part.
I have the figure, but I have it like in a box now. I'm like, I'm gonna go look.
Well, it's possible that the hat was a second part, because that might have been an easier way to mold it. But I can guarantee you, if that hat's removable, what's inside there is not that other head. It's probably like a post with a stem, so that when they put the two parts together, they press them down so the hat can't come off. If there's something inside, it's that. But I think it's one part, but I'm not positive.
Now I'm like maybe there's a hack to get that head, but I don't.
No, it's certainly not in the production toy. Even if the hat comes off, it's not underneath there. There would be some engineering features underneath there to hold the two parts together if there's anything under there.
You know, what's interesting, when I was looking through, there's the page with Sergeant Bananas, and I had just looked at like some of my old TMNT magazines that I have, and there's an issue with Gorilla, if you're familiar with that character.
Yeah, the one on skates.
Gorilla is like, you know, in the jungle, and it's like Gorilla as if like he's like a fighter.
Oh, okay. Because there's a concept sketch I have of a gorilla. He's on roller skates.
Oh,
I thought that maybe
there was like a cousin to Ray Fillet that was named Skate, I think, that had roller skates that I'm familiar with, that Ryan Brown created, but I don't know if that's related to that at all.
It could be, yeah, probably. I mean, a gorilla on roller skates. It was called the Go-Rilla, like go, you know, like he's really going.
Oh, that's great. I love it. But the thing is, I never noticed this. It could be that the picture was right in front of me, so I could focus more on it. But he had like gorilla spelled in that way on the lapel there. And it's interesting to me. I wonder if the original name for it was Gorilla before they changed to Sergeant Bananas.
The names often got mixed up. You'll see the sketches have a different name than the final toy had. I forget what Ray Fillet had a different name too. I can't remember what his original name was.
Well, yeah, because it's interesting, because the character is very different than the Ray that's in the cartoon, and they very, very different look, very different idea behind the characters. So I wonder if it was always going to be that on either side, or if one was like, we have this character that's coming out in the show, wouldn't it be great if we had a character that had a similar name in the toy line that could coordinate?
Yeah, that was definitely one that was, they took it from the comic books and pulled it into the toy line. Yeah, I think Ryan Brown might have invented that one. Maybe it was him that told me, he's like, oh, I hated that name. And whoever was the creator of it, whether it was Ryan or somebody else I talked to, and they told me like, yeah, that wasn't the name I had. I hated that name. I had this name. I forget what it was off the top of my head. So, but it was better, whatever it was. It was better than Ray Fillet.
That's exciting to me to think about the idea. To me, it would be fun to know that. With the sketches, you see a lot of that. It would be fun to know the different iterations that it started out as before it got to the final name that we all recognize it.
Like Thorn was King Lionheart, right?
Yeah.
I want to say the Merdude had a different name too.
Well, yeah, in the cartoon, it's Aleem Coelacanth is the name. But the extra faces, right, in those extra head sculpts, oh my gosh.
Yeah, those are pretty cool.
So cool. And that's the thing. It's like I see the stuff that could have been that was in the book, and it's like, I want these now. You see that it was like there's a part where it's almost like it seemed like they were going with a superhero theme to it. It almost was the Domino mask. I think that sometimes the final look of the character that's agreed upon might impact like who the character becomes, right? Or how they're trying to sell it off. But that would have been really interesting, I think, to see that, because it could have been a very different origin for that character. In the Fred Wolf, and again, this was with the animation, but the toy of Monty Moose always felt to me like it was, I don't know how familiar you are with the animation, with the cartoon series.
Not moderately, not very. not very in depth now.
Okay. Well, there's a character in the show called Dirk Savage who was like a mutant hunter, and there's a whole, that was the name of the episode. It was the whole thing. But Monty Moose like had a lot of the same aesthetics, and I'm curious, like just looking at that, if that was inspired. You know what I'm saying? If that was like,
there's definitely a concept sketch I have of a moose. I can't remember if Monty Moose is the name on that sketch or not, but yeah, I definitely found a sketch of that character. So maybe it's closer to what you're saying was in the cartoon. It's possible. I'll have to look that up and see what the character in the cartoon looks like.
This has been such a blast. This has been such a great time, as it always is, to be able to talk and geek out with you a little bit here.
Yeah, thanks.
So I appreciate that you were willing to come back on the show. I hope again to be able to talk with you even further as more of this stuff kind of percolates and comes out, because you are just such a wellspring of knowledge, and it's always just so fun to have the opportunity to chat with you. I wanted to know too, the second printing was a Kickstarter, but is there going to be other opportunities for people to be able to purchase this book? Because it seems to me that everyone should have this. It's such a staple. So
I have plenty. I basically took the entire Kickstarter fund and I bought as many copies as I could buy with those funds. So there's nobody that wants it that isn't going to get it, at least not for probably the next year or two. I've got enough inventory. So, I mean, who knows? Like some kind of viral thing could go out and suddenly I sell out real quick, but I doubt it. I mean, just knowing how many I've sold over the last, basically it's been out a year now. I think I'm gonna have enough inventory, certainly for all of 2022, anybody that would want it anywhere in the world. The best place to get it is radplastic.com. I know I have some distribution in Europe. I think it's on Amazon UK, and there's some other, I think, online booksellers in Europe that have it available. My distributor's handling that side, so I'm not even sure. I think Book Depository was one. I will say, if you want to support the artists the most you can, Rad Plastic is best for me. So you can get it there. I don't have every single country listed because it was a pain for me to go in and try to figure out postage for every single country on the planet. So I generally picked, the ones that I thought would be the highest amount of interest. So if you do go on there and you don't see your country listed, just send me an email with your full address, and I'll either can do a one-off order for you, or I can add that country to the list that's available on radplastic.com. So anybody should be able to get it if they want it. Outside of North America and Europe, shipping does get pretty pricey. Most places, shipping is more than the book outside of Europe and North America. So the problem is that generally the international shipping rates start to get really crazy after about £4. And I wasn't about to shortchange the book by trying to force it under £3. I didn't want to do that. I'm like, I want to make the book I want to make. And if that means the shipping costs, so be it. Because I didn't want to compromise on my design and vision for the book. So unfortunately, that means that because it's a £5 book and £6 with packaging, that shipping price is quite pricey outside those regions. The US and the UK are the cheapest. Shipping in those countries are like $10 or so, or $15. And everywhere else, Europe gets to be 30, 40. And then outside of that, it's getting into the $60, $70 range to ship things. So
it's leaped. Is there other places too that folks can find you in terms of where you're posting? And you're saying your YouTube, you were saying, I think you're on Instagram too, and Facebook.
If you want to get a message to me, the best place is Facebook, or just go to the website and email me off the website. That I'll respond to the most. I am on Instagram, but I don't check them and post a lot. But if you send me a message there, I will eventually get it. Just may not be as fast. And I do have a YouTube channel where I've posted some videos. So if you like the book, go check out the YouTube, because they're videos describing some of the processes I describe in the second chapter. And I'm showing examples of it holding the figures up. So it's probably a little bit more explanatory seeing it in the video than you can get from a couple static pictures on a paper. So if you want more info on the creation process, mainly that like chapter 2 stuff, go there. And like I said earlier, I'll try to post some of these finding videos on there. I also have a large archive of the television commercials. I might try posting those up on that channel as well. I've posted them to Facebook in the past. It's so old that generally people don't care. Hey, you're posting commercials, toy commercials from the 80s. Like, do we really care about that? Probably not. So I might post some of those up there as well. So I need to start adding some more stuff to that. So you've inspired me. today that like I need to get on that and add some more things. Because I was doing these, like there's about 10 videos right now. Sort of I go through, okay, here's a video about hard copies, here's a video about sculpting, here's a video about packaging design. And I go through each of them in a little more depth. So they're about 5 minutes each, so not too hard to consume quickly over lunch.
Is that RAD Plastic?
If you go to YouTube and search RAD Plastic, you'll find it. And there's another channel of some guys that make like paintball bullets or guns, or I don't know what it is. It's also called RAD Plastic. I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but like they existed before me. But it's so you'll find that. It's also like low power air gun pellets or something. They call it RAD Plastic as well. So don't go there. I mean, you can go there if you're into that, but that won't get you any fertile things.
This has been a blast. This is so much fun. Again, RAD Plastic, amazing book, great for any Turtles fan and toy fan alike. I mean, this is just, it's such a necessity. It's such a nice staple in history of Turtles encompassing. So
the other thing I should mention too is we have a specific group on Facebook for collectors of this material, the prototype material. So if you're interested in collecting it or just interested in seeing it, go to Facebook and go to TMNT Prototype Collectors, join that group. Like you were asking me earlier, what are some new things you found? Well, that's where I tend to post this new stuff I find is in there. If any of the listeners want to join that group, that's a good place to both just stay informed for fun or also to dip your toe into actually collecting this stuff.
That's great. Thank you so much for being with us here again today.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks.
This is so much fun. So again, Chris Fawcett from RAD Plastic, and until we next RAD Plastic Speaky, keep it geeky. And if you haven't already, make sure to sub up, give the video a like, and share with anyone you know who appreciates these types of videos. Also make sure to check out the description for additional links and additional creators that are doing some really cool stuff in the world of TMNT and lead to some expanded content we think you'll also probably enjoy quite a bit. We realize you could have been anywhere and you chose to nerd out with us, and we appreciate that. So, as always, I am Mr. Geek-E, and until we next RAD Plastic Speaky, keep it geeky.